this one. So when we click on this, there is by default, but this is by default perspective. So Alt G is the shortcut of perspective viewport. And as I have mentioned you earlier, the shortcut for top view is Alt J, for left view is Alt K, and for front is Alt H. And then you can also switch to bottom, right, and then back with the help of Shift. So when you click Alt Shift H, then it will be back. When you press Alt Shift K, it will be right. When you press Alt Shift J, it will be bottom. But you will be using them very rarely. So the important shortcut to remember is top for Alt G, perspective for Alt G, top for Alt J, left by Alt K, and front by Alt H. So let me show you. If I press Alt J, then it's in perspective, like it's in top view. When I press Alt H, it's in front. When I press Alt K, it's left, and when I press Alt G, it's in perspective. And it is very useful and handy to work faster. So you should remember these shortcuts on here. And this is Cine Camera Actor. If you have made any camera in the scene, then you can directly switch to the specific camera with the help of this. And let me show you now. Like when I go here and I frame a shot, and then I create a camera by this tool, like create camera here, and then again I go here, and then again I create another camera, and then I go here, create camera here. And now with the help of this tool, I can switch between any of the camera I have created already. And I will be covering the cameras in detail later on. So all the settings of the camera I will be covering later on. So now just learn about this. So we can switch between any of the camera from this. And now this is like pilot view. Whenever we use this tool, it will start seeing the scene from that camera, and it will select that camera itself, and that is called pilot view. Okay, or it's called pilot is active. That means if we use our viewport shortcuts, like if I move this or I do this, the camera itself is moving, which is sometimes very helpful or useful. Suppose you want to manipulate the camera and you want to change the viewport or location of the camera, then you can just select any object, press F, and now you can just go ahead and then frame the shot like this. And then what will happen, it will move the camera to that location, and from there you can use it while doing the cinematic video, which I will be showing later. So it's very handy while you are using or making cinematic video of your scene, because whenever you select this, it will select the camera and it will also pilot the camera. That means activate the camera, and if we move the viewport, the camera will also be moving, and that helps us to shot a great frame for animating the camera in sequencer. And when we click on this button, it will eject it. So it will, like, that camera is no more in active mode, and if we rotate our viewport, that camera will not move. But if we let me show it in this 4 view or maybe 2 viewport. So if I go here and then click Cine Camera Actors, and if I go here, as you can see, there are 3 cameras. And now if I select this one and press F, and then if I move it, you can see here in the screen, it's moving the camera also. You see, if I zoom in, it's moving the camera. If I do like this, it's moving the camera here in the left viewport. But if I eject it, and now if I move it, it's not moving the camera anymore. So that is the main thing. So now let's go to this, and this is default view like this one. And if we click on this cinematic viewport, it will be in cinematic viewport, and we will see this camera setting if we have like selected the cinematic camera actor. And for that you also have to have a sequencer in the scene, which I will be showing later. So let's ignore as of this, like this cinematic viewport. Let's just keep our viewport in default. And when we will be in cinematic viewport, I will show you how we can select this, and we can see the control on the bottom here to play, pause, next, to bring the cam cinematic front or to the end. Those are the settings which you will be getting, but that will be very clear when I will be covering the cinematic video. Now let's continue further, and while continue further, we'll go to this options or tools which will give us the viewport in different modes. So now the default viewport is lit by default, and the shortcut is Alt 4, and I have already shown how we can change the viewport from using Alt 1 2 3 4 5 6 to get different viewport modes. So this is the same here. So when we go ahead and press Alt 3, the viewport will be unlit. As I have told earlier, I will press G to start game mode, and then you can change it from here fire mode, wireframe mode, or you can change it from here detailed lighting mode. You can change it from here lighting only mode. You can change it from here reflection only mode. This player collision is not widely used, but it will show you what are the object in the scene where where the character will collide with. So these are the collisions available in the scene. So when character will go through, these objects will collide and stop the character, and you have to go around these objects, but you cannot go through these objects because they have collision on it. And this is player visibility. I have never used this tool, so I will skip it. And this is optimization mode. So this is light complexity, how complex your light is. And then this is light map density, which is very useful and very handy, and I will explain about this light map density in detail. Well, I will be teaching you how to use Epic's own GPU light mask and CPU light mask for doing interior or for doing the lighting. At that time this will be relevant because because you should be aware of the all the lighting and all its lighting technique inside Unreal Engine, and after that it will be very easy for you to understand. So I will keep this at for that time. After this, we will go to stationary light overlap, but it's not useful, and I have never used it. I will never use this shader complexity and all this shader complexity, quad overlap, primitive distance, mesh UV density, material texture scales required. I have never used these tools anytime, like in any a project. So I will skip these things which I have never used and I'm not aware of. So I will be only covering which I have been using from past 8 years on any project, and and the things which are really relevant to architectural work. So let's go to next. And level of detail correction, I have never used this. Buffer visualization, you can just click overview and it will show the viewport into different viewport modes. You can see everything at once, but I generally never use this. So you can just click any of the viewport and you can see like base color. This is base color, and this is like custom depth, and this is like final image, the image which will be finally being rendered. So these are the viewport buffer visualization. I have never used like metallic. And then if the scene is a little bit complex where everything is available like reflection, glossiness, and then normal everything is given, then it will be very relevant in that scenes. But I have never been using like or any of these options, never. And let's go to the next. It is nanite. I will explain nanite when I will be bringing some object and creating some object from external software like Max or Blender or Maya. And this will show you what are the objects that are nanite, and then every information related to nanite will be visible from here. It is quite uh, useful when you are trying to use the advantage of nanite in Unreal Engine 5, but now this whole is focused on the interface and the tools that are really important to understand and know how to do architecture using an Unreal Engine. And I will be covering this a little bit when we will be doing lighting, and we will be going through the exact lighting process. We will cover this, but as of now you can just be aware that nanite visualization viewport modes are here, which may come handy while we are doing the lighting. So visualizers, like let me change it to lit mode. Visualizers, I have never used this. And then LOD, I have never used this. And then this game setting environment, it's a little bit easier. Like this is the game setting that the exposure will be used in the project settings. And in project settings we have to go here, edit, and then project setting we have to go here, and then we have to come here in rendering, and then we have to come to this default settings, and here there is exposure. So when it's game setting, here it's game setting, it will pick the exposure value from here, or it will pick the exposure value from post process volume, which I will be showing how to use post process volume and what it is exactly. I will be explaining everything about post process volume in detail later, and that time you'll come to know about post process volume. So this, when it's game setting, the exposure is either controlled by project settings or by post process setting. They are both, like exposure settings are both, exposure settings are present in both of them. So either it will be, but if you want to override it and you want to control the exposure from the viewport itself, which I will never recommend, you can do it, but I have never used it, and I will not recommend to use exposure volume from here fixed in the viewport. So I will switch this off, and then I will go here, and then I can increase or decrease the exposure value, right? So for an exterior it should be around 12 or maybe 11.5, but I will not recommend to use the exposure value from here. Rather than that, you should always use exposure value from game setting. That will be much better, in fact. So we'll go here. I have never used this OCIO display and everything. I have never used it. So let's go to the next. So this is use default. Like when I press G, and this will show you some objects, and it will hide a category of object. Like any object that are like BSP, which I will be covering later here. From here, this tool, it will be shown. Any, or like you can see the collision here. Every object, every of these objects are having collisions. You can see these lines in them. That means when we switch this collision on, then it will show in the viewport itself, in the visual way, what object in your scene are having collision and what are not having the collision. So it is, these tools are a little bit useful, but among all these tools, anytime I have used is this collision to show or hide the information about collision, to so that I can be aware what are the objects that are missing collision and I have to give them. And the next is like this navigation while we are doing VR, and rest it should be kept default, like this anti-aliasing. If I switched off, the anti-aliasing from the viewport will be removed. There will be no anti-aliasing. If this is on, then anti-aliasing will be there. When we click atmosphere off, then the atmosphere added into the scene will be removed, or it will be gone. If you want to see it, we can just click on this atmosphere and we can see it. So it's just simple ways to show or hide a category of element in the scene or viewport. If we have used fog, then it will be like if we switch off, the fog will be gone. If we switch it off, fog will be gone. And atmosphere depends on, and atmosphere is related with the fog, so that is why when we click this fog, it's off. So if you don't want to show grid, we can switch it off. You don't want to see and show the landscape. So all these types of that. So all these settings are only like you can show or hide different categories or different things in the scene. If you don't want to see them, you can just switch it off, and you want to see them, then switch it on. This post processing